This show is part of One Place, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to today's Roundup. We are diving into 10 essential stories covering groundbreaking medical tech, surprising lifestyle findings, and critical public health warnings. Let's get started with the latest headlines for you.
A tiny salt-sized implant can now read brain activity.
Playing Call of Duty before bed might boost memory.
Hormonal shifts may worsen ADHD symptoms for many women.
The molecule NAD+ shows promise in slowing cellular aging.
A hospital delayed reporting a critical meningitis outbreak recently.
Many Americans remain unaware of processed meat cancer risks.
Overactive brain responses might actually sabotage your physical balance.
New fathers face higher depression risks 1 year later.
Romantic partners are surprisingly accurate at perceiving sexual consent.
Experts warn against 3 popular influencer-promoted health tests.
First, the brain implant. Researchers at Cornell University have developed a neural implant so incredibly small it can rest on a single grain of salt. This device, known as a MOTE, or microscale optoelectronic tetherless electrode, is a massive leap forward in microelectronics. Despite its tiny dimensions of just 300 microns in length, it can wirelessly transmit brain activity data for over a year. It is powered by red and infrared laser beams that safely pass through tissue, meaning it doesn't need bulky batteries or invasive wiring to function effectively in a living subject.
What makes this particularly fascinating is how it communicates. It uses pulse position modulation, which is the same type of code used for satellite communications, to send data back via tiny infrared pulses. This method requires very little power but remains highly reliable. By using a semiconductor diode made from aluminum gallium arsenide, the device captures light for power and emits it for data transmission simultaneously. This could completely transform how scientists study the brain, offering a way to monitor neural signals without the physical constraints of traditional wired sensors.
Next, video games and sleep.
A new study published in the journal Sleep Medicine suggests that playing a fast-paced action game like Call of Duty for an hour before bed doesn't actually ruin your sleep. In fact, for adults who don't typically play games, these sessions might lower stress and improve memory skills the following day. The researchers found that the intense concentration required to learn a new game actually helps the brain stabilize and process information overnight. This challenges the common assumption that high-intensity digital play right before sleep is always detrimental to our rest and recovery.
The study specifically looked at non-gamers because their brains have to work much harder to adapt to the virtual environment. This mental challenge seems to trigger a shift in sleep architecture that favors learning and memory consolidation. While binge gaming late into the night is still likely a bad idea, a controlled 1-hour session appears to be perfectly fine. It highlights how the context and duration of gaming matter more than the content itself. For many, it serves as a tool for emotional regulation and quick mental stimulation rather than just a distraction.
Now, ADHD and hormones.
Recent research in the Journal of Attention Disorders has found that women with ADHD who use stimulant medications may experience a significant spike in symptoms during their menstrual cycle. Specifically, symptoms and negative moods tend to peak during the menstruation phase. This is likely due to the natural fluctuation of hormones like estrogen and progesterone, which can interfere with how effectively medications like amphetamines work. Many women have reported anecdotally that their medication feels almost useless during certain days, and this study provides the tracking data to back up those personal experiences.
This is a critical finding because women have historically been underrepresented in ADHD research. For a long time, the diagnostic gap between males and females meant that female-specific biological factors were largely ignored. Now that we see how estrogen levels during the follicular phase can influence focus and emotional regulation, it points toward a desperate need for more personalized treatment plans. Clinicians may need to adjust dosages or strategies based on a patient's cycle to ensure they aren't left struggling with severe impairment for several days every single month without any support.
Moving to aging research.
A global team of scientists is focusing on a molecule called NAD+ as a potential key to slowing down the aging process. NAD+ acts as a fuel regulator for our cells, helping with energy production and DNA repair. However, Our levels of this molecule naturally decline as we get older, which is linked to memory loss, muscle weakness, and diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. A new expert review in Nature Aging suggests that boosting these levels through supplements like NR and NMN could help maintain cellular health and delay the onset of age-related decline.
While early clinical trials have shown improvements in metabolism and physical function, researchers are urging caution. We still need larger, long-term studies to determine the exact right dosages and ensure safety across different populations. The goal isn't just to live longer, but to extend our health span so that we remain functional and sharp well into our later years. Understanding the interindividual variability in how people respond to these supplements is the next big hurdle. If successful, fine-tuning NAD+ metabolism could become a standard part of preventative medicine for various neurodegenerative conditions.
Next, a health alert.
The NHS is facing criticism after a 2-day delay in reporting a meningitis outbreak in Margate. A patient arrived at the hospital on a Wednesday, but the UK Health Security Agency wasn't notified until Friday afternoon. Under current regulations, invasive meningitis is a notifiable disease that must be reported as soon as it is suspected, not after a formal diagnosis is confirmed. This delay meant that health officials couldn't immediately begin tracing close contacts, potentially allowing the infection to spread further among young adults and teenagers in the local community during that critical window.
Experts have called this delay indefensible, noting that 10 people developed symptoms between that first admission and the public alert. With 2 deaths already reported and several others in intensive care, the stakes are incredibly high. The hospital admitted it missed an opportunity to alert authorities sooner, citing a wait for test results. However, in cases of infectious disease, speed is everything. Earlier warnings allow the public to seek medical help at the first sign of symptoms, which can be the difference between a full recovery and a tragic outcome in a fast-moving outbreak.
Now, diet and cancer.
A new poll has revealed a concerning knowledge gap in the United States regarding colon cancer. Nearly half of Americans are unaware that eating processed meat, like bacon or deli meats, significantly increases the risk of colorectal cancer. This is particularly worrying as colon cancer is now the leading cause of cancer deaths for adults under the age of 50. Interestingly, once participants in the survey were informed of the link, 2/3 of them expressed support for warning labels on these products. It suggests that people want clearer information to make better choices for their health.
The study also found that only 1 in 3 adults remembers a healthcare professional ever mentioning the link between diet and colon cancer. This highlights a need for better education among doctors to discuss the protective benefits of fiber-rich diets full of fruits, vegetables, and grains. Research shows that those following a plant-based diet have a 22% lower risk of developing these cancers. By shifting awareness and encouraging lifestyle changes, we could see a dramatic reduction in cases. Awareness is the first step toward prevention, especially during National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Next, balance and aging.
When it comes to maintaining balance as we age, it turns out that trying too hard might actually be the problem. Researchers at Emory University found that in older adults and those with Parkinson's, the brain and muscles often become overactive during even minor balance disruptions. This overactivity actually weakens the ability to recover. Instead of a smooth adjustment, the brain sends intense signals that cause opposing muscles to stiffen against each other. This added stiffness makes movements less efficient and much less stable, which paradoxically increases the likelihood of a fall occurring during a simple trip.
This discovery could lead to better ways of predicting who is at a high risk of falling. By measuring muscle activity after a small disturbance, like pulling a rug, doctors might be able to identify individuals whose brains are overcompensating. This would allow for targeted balance training and exercise programs before a serious injury happens. It is a shift in how we think about physical stability. It is not just about muscle strength, but about how the brain manages energy and coordination. Learning to relax into a recovery might actually be more effective than tensing up.
Now, mental health in fathers.
A study of over 1 million fathers in Sweden has uncovered a surprising trend in paternal mental health. While fathers often show stability or even fewer psychiatric diagnoses during pregnancy and the first few months of a child's life, This changes significantly about a year later. Diagnoses for depression and stress-related disorders were found to rise by more than 30% after the first year of fatherhood. This suggests that the emotional toll and the cumulative stress of lifestyle changes, sleep deprivation, and shifting relationship dynamics build up over time rather than hitting the father immediately after birth.
This delayed increase was unexpected for researchers, who typically focus on the immediate postpartum period. It underscores the importance of monitoring the mental well-being of fathers long after the initial excitement of a new baby has faded. Many men may feel they need to be the rock for their family early on, suppressing their own struggles until they become overwhelmed much later. By recognizing this one-year mark as a high-risk period, healthcare providers can better support families and ensure that fathers receive the help they need before stress turns into a more serious clinical condition.
Next, sexual consent research.
New research, published in the journal Sex Roles, is challenging the long-held theory that sexual consent is frequently misinterpreted in romantic relationships. The study, which looked at hundreds of couples, found that partners are generally very accurate at perceiving each other's internal willingness and desire. This contradicts the sexual miscommunication theory, which often suggests that men in particular tend to overestimate a partner's interest due to traditional gender roles. Instead, the data shows that people in established, exclusive relationships develop a strong understanding of their partner's verbal and nonverbal cues over time, leading to healthier decision-making.
The researchers used a truth and bias model to compare how individuals felt versus how their partners thought they felt. They found a high level of agreement, which correlates with higher relationship satisfaction. While external communication, like words and behavior, is vital, the internal feeling of comfort and readiness is what partners seem to pick up on most accurately. This suggests that the intimacy of a romantic bond provides a unique clarity that might not exist in more casual encounters. It reinforces the idea that healthy relationships are built on a foundation of mutual understanding and shared signals.
Finally, influencer health tests.
Experts are warning the public to be wary of medical tests frequently promoted by social media influencers. 3 specific tests, full-body MRI scans, testosterone blood tests, and the egg timer fertility test, are being marketed as empowering tools for health control. However, researchers from the University of Sydney warned that these can lead to overdiagnosis and unnecessary anxiety. For example, full-body MRIs often find incidental findings in healthy people that would never have caused a problem, leading to invasive surgeries or treatments that do more harm than good. These scans are often marketed as holistic checks, but lack evidence for improving health outcomes.
The egg timer or AMH test is another major concern. While it measures egg count, it cannot actually predict a woman's chances of conceiving or her reproductive timeline. Marketing it to healthy women as a definitive fertility test can cause significant psychological distress. Similarly, testosterone tests are often pushed without proper medical context. Influencers often leave out the risks of these interventions, focusing only on the power of information. Experts suggest that instead of following social media trends, people should rely on evidence-based screenings recommended by medical professionals who understand the nuances of these complex diagnostic tools.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for this daily update. Be sure to follow the show for your next focused briefing on the stories that matter most.